Hi, my name is Karima and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about giving your risk register a hard reset or a deep clean. So this video is for anyone that's responsible for maintaining a risk register. So whether you're in enterprise or you're in cybersecurity, infosec, and the purpose of this video is to give you basically a process on how to give your register a deep clean. So I'll set the scene. Imagine, you've got a risk register, you haven't looked at it in a few months, you know it's out of date, or you've got multiple people going in and out of the risk register, and you know that the standards have slipped. You might just feel tempted to, just scrap it and start over, but there could be good information in there. So I've had this a couple of times, and usually I start off with just a general review. So step number one, give the risk register a general review. So you want to look in there, you want to look at, the last time it was updated, so like dates. You want to look for like quick wins, so things, let's say a risk that was logged for specific events. So logging this risk in case this thing crystallizes on this specific date. So if those dates have passed, nothing happened, again, tick, you can get rid of those. So just get a feel for what's in the risk register. Have a look at the different areas that were involved. So, identity and access management, finance, legal, whatever it is. Just get an overview of what's already within the risk register. And this process is applicable whether it's a database you have or a SaaS tool or a spreadsheet, whatever it is. So the next step is to get a working copy. So if it's a GRC tool, then just hit, there's normally like an export button that you can export into like a XLSX or a CSV file. You just need something you can put in Excel and write on top of, basically. So get every single column, export that into an Excel sheet. If you have the risk register in an Excel sheet already, make a copy and name it, working copy with today's date. So when you have all the different information in there, the next step is to start working through it, start grouping it. Either group by area or by domain or like business lead area. So find some sort of logical process for doing that, and then sort those into different buckets. So create a column on the far left or far right or whatever, create a column and then mark it with that, so then you can go through and start writing comments for each of them. So some, like I mentioned before, you'll be able to review and know that, if you've passed a certain date and a certain thing hasn't crystallized, you can just quickly mark that for deletion. And then once you've gone through, like you've done your first pass, you've gone through the entire document and you've decided that, you've made decisions in terms of what needs to happen. Next, you want to verify with a business area or business lead, because a lot of the time with outdated risk registers, people have moved on into other places of the business. So whether it's like risk owners or whatever, so you need to find out who's responsible for that now. Whilst you're doing this in the background, it might be helpful to reach out to the different business areas and say, you're undertaking this exercise and you're going to send them, either sit down with them in a few weeks or however long you think it's going to take you, or you're going to send along the spreadsheet for them to indicate where we are with specific items. So once you've done that first pass, you've decided, you've sorted things into different buckets. So whether it needs an update, it needs to be deleted, or it needs to be actioned, whatever the action is you need to take. Once you've sorted all of those, then you sit with the individual area leads and then you say, this is what I think, correct me. And then that's where you get the updated names. They'll tell you the ones that need to be closed, so they'll provide you with narrative to allow you to close things and get those signed off. And then on top of that, you'll also learn of any new areas, and then by then you're like building the relationship as well. And at that point, you can give them some guidance around how you need to manage the risk register on an ongoing basis. I've also got a video about maintaining the risk register somewhere else on my channel. And yeah, once you've done that, you've been better informed, you've got the new information you need. So now you need to get that back into the original risk register. Depending on your tooling, you might be able to do a bulk import. So you can either bulk import it back into the tool, or you can go in entry by entry and update them, along with the meetings you have, just to keep the system all up to date. But you don't want to lose any of the good information. So even if you've decided to archive a risk, you still need to like provide a narrative as to why it's been closed, the date it's been closed, and the conversations that have been had. And then next, you need to create some guidance to make sure you don't find yourself in that scenario again. So do some documentation to describe how the risk register needs to be maintained. So let's say, depending on the criticality of the risk, you might say every 3 months it needs to be reviewed, or monthly it needs to be reviewed. And on top of that, you need to reach out to the risk owners and say, you know, if there's a change in job role or someone else moves on, then the risk register also needs to be updated so that risks are handed from one person to another. And that will just improve like the risk management practices as well, because much of the time the risks are being managed but they're not being captured, and that's the important part. You need to capture it as things are happening. And then to conclude, this process will give your risk register a hard reset. So it will give it a refresh, like a spring clean. And then after that, you just need to focus on maintaining it and going in as and when to make sure it's being updated. And a tip that I've seen work well is to divide the risk register entries either by area or domain and assign that to individuals within the risk team, so that there's every so often, if you don't see an update for like a particular item or particular group of risks, someone can reach out to the risk owner and, you know, prompt them to take some action. So there's a little bit of individual responsibility in that way. That's everything for now. Remember to like, comment and subscribe.